start.
Thank you, Josh.
2, 1. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 10th anniversary celebration for Hard Faith. We're here with our founder, Spencer Folmar, and let's just get right into the questions. We're going to be doing an interview. He's going to be telling us a lot about the company, how it started, where it's going, and it's going to be a lot of fun. So let's just get right into it. So for the first question, Spencer, I guess we've really been wondering, it's been a great 10 years since the formation of Third Brother Films, now called Hard Faith. Could you tell me and the audience how the company began?
Yeah, so it was 10 years ago. It was on November 11th, 2011. And I was actually in my first year of seminary. I'd just gotten back from Bible school, and I had already made 2 feature films. And now after coming back from Bible school, I got familiar with what was called a faith-based film. And I'd seen a lot of faith-based films after my conversion, but I realized I wanted to make films that dealt with serious, gritty, human issues that led me to conversion. And I thought might be helpful to others, either thinking about Christianity or even deep in their faith. And so my cousin, actually, I was living with him at the time while I was going to seminary. He had read an article in World Magazine about Tim Keller's new book at the time called Prodigal God. And it's a deep dive into the parable of the prodigal son. And in that parable, Keller argues that there should have been a third brother. You have the elder brother who stayed outside the party, sort of the legalist. You have the younger brother who ran away with his father's inheritance, more grace. But there should have been an elder brother who would have chased after the younger brother and also loved the elder brother outside the party. And that would be the third brother. And that third brother would be Christ. So that was our first name. Generational Sins, when it was released, was under the Third Brother title. But while we're having conversations about generational sins back in 2017, and that was our first Hard Faith film, feature-length film, there was a lot of confusion about what the name was. You know, whenever we would hire a woman, they'd say, are we the third sister? Or, you know, do you have brothers? Am I a brother? So we realized that although we thought the name was quite clever, that to get to the heart of what we were trying to do with our cinematic and faith mission was to get something more clear cut. And it was actually during the marketing press tour and the theatrical release of Generational Sins that our marketer came up with the term hard faith. And how we've come to talk about it is that hard faith is that life isn't easy and faith is not easy. Often they both can be hard, but it's not a hardened faith like a hardened heart, but it's a hard faith that can survive difficulties of life and is strengthened by difficulty.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that the name change, it really accentuates what you guys are creating right now, and with Shooting Heroin and Generational Sins. I think that the name change was really good, and yeah, I really enjoy the content that's been created. So you mentioned that Generational Sins was the first feature film that you made with the company, but was there another film, maybe short film, that you came up before?
Yeah, so during that time, we had worked on a couple different projects, trying to figure out what that first feature film or hard faith film would be. And it was actually during an independent study at seminary with a professor that I worked on a short film. It was actually an animated short film called The Great Surgeon. And this is a film that started and stopped. I did a Kickstarter. We were not successful in raising the funds. I did an Indiegogo, made enough money to find a New Zealand animator who would work with me to bring this short film to life. I released that short film actually before Generational Sins, but it didn't necessarily have the resources it needed to be what I was hoping it to be, and it was kind of a rush production. And an animated project is quite difficult. So I'm in the process now, actually, concurrently with the 10-year anniversary, of releasing a new 2020 version of The Great Surgeon, which we're looking forward to sharing on our new Vimeo Hard Faith page and allow audiences to see this finalized project, which was the first Hard Faith project, finally properly released 10 years later.
Yeah, that's really exciting. I know we've been talking about that lately, and That is really exciting to see. To really see your original vision come to life. So next question, we're gonna go. It's been 10 years now, or it's going to be 10 years in a couple of days as of filming this video. So is there a specific memory that you have of Hard Faith or the people that are in Hard Faith that demonstrate what the company means to you and to others?
There's a few memories from set and from production and release of the different features and working on them. Generational Sins was a really soulful production, and it, as being the first feature, it really stays in my memory with a lot of a first feature in the Hard Faith realm. My co-producer on that film was Thurman, who I met at seminary. And so a lot of roads lead back to the foundation of Third Brother and Hard Faith back in 2011, 10 years later now. And, Thurman and I both had a desire to make films that would speak to audiences not necessarily found in church pews, but also deal with issues that aren't heard from the pulpit. And in Generational Sins, it's very much that story. It's a story about two brothers who return home to reconcile with their alcoholic and abusive father. It's a gritty and sad, but also redemptive story. And the filming of that, the process of making that film was a really spiritual experience. Most of our actors had never seen a faith-based film. They don't have any kind of Christian background or faith. But even for them, in a featurette that we released, and we did some interviews with our lead cast, they said it was the most spiritual faith experience, and that they started to investigate Christianity after being involved in the filmmaking process. And I think some of the memories that I cherish and think about whenever I even hear the words Hard Faith is being on set. It's like Murphy's Law is always present on any film set, and it felt especially present on the small indie film set of Generational Sins, the little indie that could. And I remember even once we couldn't get a gate open to one of the final scenes, and it was a very long driveway to get to the house, which is the main house of the film. And I decided to take this opportunity and just walk through the woods and walk to the set and prepare and talk to God and pray and read scripture. And it just really put me in the right mindset to be able to film such a important scene for the day. And it's just been a reminder, thinking about that memory of God's providence throughout this whole journey. It hasn't been how I would have imagined it 10 years ago, but I'm very thankful for how it turned out and excited for where it's going.
Yeah, absolutely. So is there anyone a part of the company throughout all 10 years that you were mentioning about how it's a spiritual journey that helped things get done that many people don't know about potentially in the general public?
It's been an ongoing kind of group conversation since seminary. When I was getting my master's of theology, I would have this conversation about why isn't there cinematic films that portray Christianity as it actually is in the real world, with professors, classmates, cousins, family, fellow filmmakers, and even other faith-based filmmakers that have encouraged me along the way. Criticisms I've received from the church, some people that are kind of concerned or nervous about a PG-13 or R-rated faith-based film. And then there's a lot of, I'd say, unsung heroes too, along the way of our crew. We had so many different crews and camera people and fellow screenwriters and ministries that supported us, Hollywood Prayer Network, Greenhouse over in Hollywood. And then I've been blessed actually to have countless interns as well. I graduated from Grove City College. I worked with 3 or 4 interns from college, from my high school, from the surrounding high schools. And now I'm even working with a wonderful Biola student.
Thank you.
Josh,
Thank you so much.
Joshua Glass. And, a lot of people probably wouldn't realize that Josh has been posting for our social media the last year, and that keeps the presence going. There's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes of a film set that people don't understand. It takes a village to raise a film. It takes a village to continue on this kind of vision of Hard Faith. So
yeah, absolutely. It takes a village to create a 5-minute short.
Yeah,
And think about how much it takes to create a whole entire feature. It's quite a task.
it is.
So speaking of features, you've made a lot of great features. So you've made Generational Sins and Shooting Heroin. So what film is in store next for Hard Faith?
This is something every day I wake up, I kind of think, all right, Spencer, what's next? What's the next Hard Faith film? And it changes in different seasons. Shooting Heroin came out during the pandemic, and so the release schedule of that changed dramatically. We were going to go from Shooting Heroin right into production into a Dietrich Bonhoeffer biopic epic shot in Germany called Holy Traitor. Had done location scouting, started to raise a development fund. The pandemic struck, and still today, at the end of 21, it feels a little like you're stepping onto uneven ground trying to plan an international shoot during the ongoing pandemic. But, Holy Traitor, the story of Dietrich Bonhoeffer, will be made soon. Is it the next film? I'm not sure. The next film is a variety of films. It could be, and it kind of changes monthly, I would say. There's a film I have written actually during the post-production of Shooting Heroin. It's called The Man of Sorrow. It's a modern day adaptation of the Book of Job set in the Bayou of Louisiana. I just sent that to a very successful production company actually last night in Dallas, and they're reviewing that as far as production. There's The Beast in Me, which is the film that I was in the process of making before I switched gears and made Shooting Heroin, and that's about sex trafficking in Las Vegas. I don't think that's the next film, but we'll see if resources come together that points in that direction. There's also Saint Nick, which is a Christmas film that has a hard faith angle towards it, about the story of a real Santa Claus that gives gifts that people actually need, not what they just want. And that's based on a real life story from back home in central Pennsylvania, where most of my stories come from. And then there's a new script that I'm working on that was only fleshed out as a concept back in seminary. And now it's coming to fruition 10 years later, which feels very fitting. And it's called God is Beautiful. And it's a story about spiritual abuse in the church and how devastating church and Christians can be. But at the end of the day and the end of a spiritual journey, we still need the community of believers to support one another, despite how broken and messy we can be. And so I feel like God is Beautiful is the story. That's the script I'm currently working on right now. And if the script turns out well, I think it could be a very relevant story for Christianity in America today.
I really can't wait to see what comes next. I mean, I know I've read a couple of the scripts that you just mentioned, and the Book of Job one is going to be really good. I really can't wait to see that come on the big screen, and that one's going to be really exciting for hard faith viewers, in my opinion. I guess the next question that naturally comes up is, so this is always a hard question for creators, but what is your favorite film, short film, feature film? Which one's your favorite that you've ever made?
There was a couple films actually that I made. Like my first film wasn't a hard faith film. I made it when I was 17. It was called Fortified. That has some favorite memories because it was my first film and it wasn't hard faith. It was just an action thriller. Second film was a adaptation of Crime and Punishment called Guilt and Sentence. I made in 2010. There's Generational Sins, Shooting Heroin, a couple films I've had the privilege of co-producing, and then the short film, The Great Surgeon. I think often my heart is in my first hard faith feature film, which was Generational Sins. I am proud of how Shooting Heroin turned out, and I think it's a much more entertaining and professional, polished piece. That Generational Sins, being an earlier edition of hard faith, wasn't benefited from. But Generational Sins is just such a soulful, personal story that it always feels like my favorite child.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I watch the movies constantly for to get screenshots for the
You do.
for the
You're my most
Instagram
faithful
accounts.
audience
Oh my
member.
gosh, I watch those movies all the time. I think I've seen Generational Sins and Shooting Heroin probably 25 times all the way through. If I were to go, because yeah, I've seen it a lot and I like it.
You're in
I wouldn't.
competition with my mom as my most faithful audience.
That's a great, yeah. Well, I mean, it's pretty hard, but anyways, so to follow up this question, I guess if viewers with keen eyesight, they'll notice that you are in some of your own films, whether you're as the waiter at the diner in Generational Sins, or you're the pathologist in the morgue and Shooting Heroin. So I guess the natural question to come back up is, what is your favorite role in these films? The role that you play yourself.
Oh boy. I do like to make my Hitchcock appearance in all my films. And in the funny thing is in Generational Sins, my role as the waiter is Jeff. Jeff was actually a pretty big part. It was like a supporting lead part. And the actor that was supposed to play the role of Jeff a day or two before shooting couldn't make it from Hollywood. And so we ended up severely cutting down the role of Jeff. And I was trying to get even high school friends, anyone to play this role. And I just realized at the end of the day that Jeff was not a necessary character in the world of characters of Generational Sins. It's a lot better just to focus on your main characters. And we had enough supporting characters. And so it became a running joke to kill Jeff, because in every scene that Jeff showed up, we had to kill him off and he didn't exist anymore. And the only thing that remained was Drew recognizing Jeff in the diner. And I even had more dialogue in that scene, but it became so unnatural for me as the director, working so personally with the actor Daniel McPherson, who is in the new Apple television show Foundation, and just an actor I've respected and known for a long time, and worked with him on that set and worked with him so long, to now change from like director actor to actor, and we could not keep straight. There's a blooper reel of Jeff and Drew, and we use each other's names incorrectly and mostly are laughing. So even from the little dialogue scene where Jeff was still alive, we cut down tremendously. So that was probably my favorite.
You have like one line.
Yeah.
You don't, your face isn't even shown. It's just the
Yeah.
back. It's like your back,
And
and
that's
you say like they give the orders and you say, "Oh, come right up" or something like that. I just
the
know it's
only
your
thing.
voice. It's the only thing that you say. And and then in the morgue, you just have a very minor shot. It's just one shot, right? I
Yep.
think, where you reveal Adam's dead sister, and then you back up into the shadow.
And I think in the future, it'll be more of those kind of roles. Just like someone in the shadow. I don't see myself talking so much in films in the future.
Yeah, I understand that. As a person that wants to become a director as well, like I am a terrible actor. I would never ever want to be in my own film as a super integral character, because in the editing room you're just looking at yourself like, that's not good enough.
Exactly. My first film, Fortified, I was one of the lead characters and directing myself with my friends from high school that were so generous to be in this film on our weekends during the summer. And yeah, I learned quickly that I needed to have as small as role as possible. And in each film I make, my role gets smaller. In Fortified, my first film, I was, one of the 3 leads. The second film, I was a jail warden and I had one dialogue scene. The second film, I get coffee. And then, or the third film, I get coffee. And then the fourth film, I just step into the shadows.
Yep.
So whatever the next movie is, don't expect a big cameo.
Just I won't, but I mean, it's still, you still are in the frame at some point. Maybe it'll just be a frame, just 1 second.
Some picture in the background.
Right. Absolutely. Anyways, final question, I guess, and I think we've gone around to this question naturally, but just to tie it up neatly, what do you think the future holds for Hard Faith in general? So like, what direction would you like to go personally with the company?
Yeah, Hard Faith, I feel like, is my main calling and mission in life. Since conversion a little over 10 years ago, my main passions in life are film and theology, film and Christianity. And I'm always trying to figure out how to combine those passions and how to use my skills and talents and passions to help society, help others, and hopefully entertain along the way. I think for Hard Faith, what I want the next 10 years to look like is a consistent, production, whether it's a large production, whether it's a small production, independent production, short films, videos like this. But I want the conversation to be ongoing about Hard Faith, about, how people connect with the material and what kind of material they'd like to see, but also a deeper personal, almost confessions of Hard Faith is a book I'm working on about the struggle of having faith in a very dark world and how that looks personally for myself and how that looks for others. But I think it'll continue to look like an experimental art form that hopefully is honest and real and truthful.
All right. Well, thank you so much for giving us this interview. And again, happy 10-year anniversary for Hard Faith, as well as happy wedding. You just recently got married, and I think that's important for everybody to know. So I hope that was enjoyable. Of course it was. Happiest day of your life, as everybody says. So really congratulations. Big year for you, and I'm sure a lot of big years more to come. So thank you so much, and we're going to be signing off right now.